What up, guys? Welcome into the Week 10 Squirrel Report. We have a very fun show planned for you today. We are talking about the guys you need to be starting here in Week 10, as well as a very fun November-themed skit that we threw together, and guys that you should be avoiding in your fantasy lineup this week. But for now, let's make sure you get the guys you need in your starting lineup. Let's get to it. Through the first 5 games of this season, David Montgomery was running back 4, averaging 20.2 fantasy points per game. He has been one of the best running back values in fantasy football. Now, quick note, he did sit out in week 3 and he got hurt again in week 6. But when David Montgomery has been healthy, he's been a top 5 running back for fantasy managers. And since Monty's been out, Jahmyr Gibbs has been RB1 on a per game basis. You could not sit Jahmyr Gibbs even if Monty comes back. You cannot sit Monty just because Jahmyr Gibbs has looked like the player that Bijan Robinson was supposed to be. So what do you do if you have either of these Detroit running backs? Just start them both. That's it. No caveats, no second guessing. That's all there is. They're both inside my top 15 in week 10. Here's a shocking stat for you guys. Deontae Johnson has 5 times as many catches as George Pickens over the last 2 weeks, 15-3. Pickens has been so upset with his volume that he posted #FreeMe on his Instagram story. But not only that, he unfollowed the Steelers and head coach Mike Tomlin and fellow wide receiver Deontay Johnson and his quarterback Kenny Pickett. He went full-on 14-year-old in a teen movie and has now tried to walk it back a little bit. Come on. The only time that works is when you have a quarterback. But Kenny Pickett is not that guy, pal.
You're not
all
that
right?
guy.
So back to Deontay for a second. He's wide receiver 11 over the last 3 weeks with a target share of 30% over that time. Given all of that, plus the Pickens drama and the fact that Kenny Pickett has averaged just 5.1 yards per attempt over the last 2 weeks, which is 30th out of 31 quarterbacks, by the way, it means that I'm going to keep defaulting to the target monster in this offense. That guy is Deontay Johnson. He is a top 20 wide receiver for me here in week 10. How tough has the tight end position been this year? You can't trust either Falcons tight end. Travis Kelce's on a bye, Darren Waller's on IR, and Dallas Goedert is out with a fractured forearm, which means we're looking for a new tight end to put into our top 10. I mean, I can't be the only one trying to fill my tight end slot this weekend, right? So if you're suffering from a gaping hole in your tight end due to the pounding that you are taking from injuries and week 10 buys, look no further than Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson. Ferguson has the second most points amongst tight ends over the last 2 weeks, which just so happens to coincide with Dak Prescott's resurgence as a passer. This week he's going to get a depleted Giants team that hasn't really been tested at the tight end position since week 3. And I know Ferguson will not be scoring touchdowns every week, but he has proven himself to be a very valuable part of this passing game with an 18% target share over the last 2 weeks. So it's because of that kind of passing game, his rapport with Dak Prescott, and the giant hole that I need to fill means I'm sticking Jake Ferguson into my tight end slot, and I suggest you do the same. You know, guys, it's November. Normally, my fellow squirrels and I, we're gathering nuts for the winter. But some squirrels in our lineup, they're on a diet, maybe in danger of a no-nut November. Top of that list is my dude, Tony Pollard. Last year, this dude gathered nuts through the air and on the ground to the tune of 12 touchdowns, including 3 in the month of November. But here in 2023, Tony Pollard only has 2 touchdowns, both from week 1. So we're going to help him out break the streak with some solidarity. Until Tony Pollard gets a nut, we will not. That is how far we are willing to go in order to make this happen. There will be no nuts this November until Tony Pollard sees those TDs. Time to nut up, Antonio. But guys, November isn't just about getting nuts. It's also No Shave November. And all the good squirrels out here are out there doing their part. But we've got a traitor in our midst. Because Arthur Smith ended Movember with a 3:45 a.m. shaving of his mustache. I don't get it. Dude hates Movember. He hates men's prostates. He hates your fantasy team. I mean, didn't his mother ever teach him nothing good happens after 2 a.m.? Apparently not, but that's not my job. Anyways, Bijan Robinson. That guy has 1 carry inside the 5-yard line this year. The same as Jonnu Smith and Kaderil Hodge. Why on earth does the number 8 overall pick have the same number of carries inside the 5-yard line as a tight end and a 4th-string wide receiver? I don't get it. I have no idea. Not my job to figure it out, but I gotta tell you, me and the squirrels were confused and concerned. We might have to get PETA involved at this point. All right, we're talking sits of the week now, and my big kahuna sit of the week is Gus Edwards, because you got to have big kahunas in order to sit him after what he's done over the last 3 weeks. Let's take a quick look back, all right? In week 7, he had a career day with 21.4 fantasy points on 15 touches. Then in week 8, he topped that with another career day, 29.4 fantasy points on 21 touches, the 2 best games he has ever had in the NFL. And then last week, he had the 7th highest scoring day of his career, another big game, 17.2 fantasy points. Gus Edwards is RB1 in fantasy points over the last 3 weeks. It's unreal. I don't understand it, but I also don't think it's going to continue. You want to know why? Because last week he had 5 touches. 5 touches! He scored 17 fantasy points on 5 touches! That is super unsustainable. I will do a board bet against everyone that wants to use Gus Edwards this week. Right now it's result over process, not process over result. So hopefully you've got better options, because Gus Edwards, outside my top 20, he's the big kahuna sit of the week as long as you've got the kahunas. Guys, you know quarterbacks don't play well against Baltimore. Only one quarterback has had more than 15.4 fantasy points against the Ravens this year. And now the Ravens draw Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns, and I haven't seen anything to think that Deshaun is the guy he used to be in Houston. He's quarterback 32 in completions, quarterback 32 in attempts, quarterback 33 in passing yards. I mean, he's quarterback 22 in fantasy points per game. No thank you. Not against the Ravens. So go ahead and add your fantasy roster to the list of things that Deshaun Watson should not touch this weekend. I got a lot of questions around our Davonte Adams ranking this week, and a big part of it has to do with Jakobi Meyers. So buckle up and hear me out. Maybe I'm missing something, but when looking over the last 4 weeks, Davonte Adams, wide receiver 64. And yet my colleagues, whom I love and respect, mostly have him inside the top 20 against the Jets. Meanwhile, Jakobi Meyers is wide receiver 29 over that time frame, almost 40 spots higher than Davonte Adams. But he's ranked outside the top 30. What am I missing? I have no idea what my friends are legally smoking here in Connecticut. Maybe some of that Carabel Kush, some Sour Clay Diesel, a little Field Minister Haze, or a nice Northern Loza Lights, right? Either way, it's got to be some pretty potent stuff to have Adams as a top 20 wide receiver. This is a trap game. So I'm out on these Raiders wide receivers here in week 10. Hopefully, I am wrong, and Davonte Adams goes off, and I'm the reason why it happens, and you guys can all yell at me for saying to bench him. But it is totally fine for you to go a different direction here in week 10. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us this week. We're going to keep it short. Love you guys coming by every single week. If this was fun for you, please share it with one friend of yours. We'd love to get more eyes on the Squirrel Report. Call the Squirrel Report hotline. That phone number is real. I promise it is. I want to answer all your questions, and that's going to do it for us. Good luck here in week 10. We'll see you in week 11. Peace.